Acting is a profession that requires a lot of versatility and a willingness to test boundaries. Often, this bravery pays off with a critically acclaimed performance that's lauded for years or even becomes cinematic history. Sometimes, however, it results in a complete nightmare for everyone involved. Based on the 1980s TV show of the same name, The Equalizer stars Denzel Washington as Robert McCall, a widower who works at a hardware store when he's not busy killing bad guys. In the film's climax, McCall lures some murderous Russian gangsters to his place of employment, where an explosion sets off the store sprinkler system. Looks boss, right? Well, Washington told Cinema Blend he quickly got real tired of being so damn wet.
But by that third day,
at
about 11 at night, after a 13-hour day, I disagreed.
It still looks pretty boss though. Actress Margot Robbie had a pretty bad time making Suicide Squad. First of all, her character Harley Quinn wore skimpy outfits that made her feel self-conscious, and she kept accidentally poking herself with her spiky gold bangles.
Harley Quinn, nice to meet ya.
But when the Washington Post asked Robbie what scene was her least favourite, she had an answer at the ready. She absolutely hated filming that scene where Quinn throws herself into a vat of white ooze. Robbie says she was utterly repulsed because the nasty stuff kept getting into her ears and nose. I couldn't breathe, and I tried to open my eyes and it would glaze over my eyeballs, and I could only see white. It was horrible. Actor Chris Hemsworth isn't too thrilled about undressing on screen these days.
Sorry I tased you.
He was perfectly fine being shirtless in the first Thor film, but increasingly got annoyed at those gratuitous scenes starring his abs. When Thor: The Dark World rolled around, Joss Whedon insisted he stripped down after a big battle sequence. Speaking with MTV News, Hemsworth admitted he was hesitant.
So, and he said, "Chris, get your shirt off." And I said, "Well, I don't know, what's the why? What are we doing?"
The issue came up again during Thor Ragnarok, and the shirt came off again. Hemsworth told Access Hollywood he was relieved he could keep his shirt on during the Thor film, but director Taika Waititi felt the film needed some eye candy.
And then Taika, midway through shooting, came up and said, "I think we need to put some bums on seats. I think we need to get the shirt off." And I was like, "No, they don't want to see that."
They did though. It's fun playing the biggest bad guy in the universe. Just ask Josh Brolin. He crushed it as Thanos in Avengers: Infinity War, and he reportedly really enjoyed tearing the Hulk a new one. But Brolin says he wasn't altogether pleased about having to kill Loki. According to Brolin, actor Tom Hiddleston was obsessed with getting Loki's last scene just right, so filming became quite the bittersweet bummer. Brolin told USA Today, "Tom was so vulnerable at that moment, so choking him out wasn't the most fun thing I ever done."
I don't feel so good.
Directed by Quentin Tarantino, The Hateful Eight was a lighting rod for hot takes and angry opinions, but music lovers probably had the best reason to hate the film, especially since Kurt Russell destroyed a guitar that turned out to be a priceless antique.
Music time's over.
Russell thought the guitar was a prop, but it was actually an instrument from the 1860s and worth over $40,000. The incident really shook up Lee, as she'd fallen in love with the antique, and Russell was devastated by what he'd done.
Hell, I'm already regretting this.
Speaking to Billboard, Lee explained that Russell felt terrible when he discovered his mistake. When he found out, his eyes literally welled up. It ended up being great for the scene, but very sad for the guitar, and for my guitar teacher, and for me. It's rare that a romantic comedy comes along and breathes new life into the genre, but when Set It Up hit Netflix, critics were delighted by the tale of two employees trying to get their bosses to hook up. Starring Zoey Deutch and Glenn Powell, the film takes a predictable turn when the two matchmakers fall in love themselves. In the film's most celebrated scene, the two co-workers share a late-night pizza, which sparks their romance.
This is the best meal I've ever had.
Unfortunately for Deutsch, filming the scene wasn't exactly romantic. That's because she devoured 4 entire pies while shooting that scene and threw up halfway through the shoot. And then she had to get very close to Glenn Powell in order to finish the shoot. She told Hello Giggles, "I think he looks at me in a very different light." Critics weren't the only ones who found 50 Shades of Grey alarmingly unsexy. Based on the runaway bestseller book of the same name, the 2015 film stars Jamie Dornan as the snooziest sadist ever, and Dakota Johnson as his willing slave.
I need you to show me what you want to do to me. Punish me. Show me how bad it can be.
Unfortunately, filming all those bondage, domination, and torture scenes could be pretty bad. Johnson spent hours tied up, blindfolded, and pretending to be struck by a whip. She told Time magazine, "It's really hot. Not in a steamy sexual way. It's just sweaty and it's not very comfortable." She said the sex scenes were so taxing she started thinking, okay, let's just get this over with. Coincidentally, that's exactly what we were thinking halfway through 50 Shades of Grey.
Maybe the most memorable scene in Titanic is the one where Kate Winslet's Rose character asks Leonardo DiCaprio's Jack to draw me like one of your French girls. It's a passionate moment showing her character overcoming the disapproval of her fiancé and mother to claim her own agency and embrace the man she's fallen in love with.
As a paying customer, I expect to get what I want.
But now obsessive fans try to get Winslet to sign pictures of herself naked, and she'd love for that to stop. She told Yahoo News, quote, "I don't sign that picture. It feels very uncomfortable. Why would you do that?" End quote. Why indeed? Taylor Lautner played the werewolf character Jacob in the Twilight series, and his transformations usually left him shirtless, if not completely naked. Fans loved it, but Lautner worries now that his pecs might overshadow his acting. He told Ace Showbiz, quote, "If I had to choose, I would never take my shirt off again in a movie, but I guess that's not very realistic. I certainly won't be asking to do it though." End quote. In the 2013 action comedy Kick-Ass 2, Jim Carrey plays a superhero called Colonel Stars and Stripes who's gruesomely murdered by supervillains. A few months after the film was released, Carrey publicly condemned the level of violence in the film after experiencing a change of heart in the aftermath of the tragic Sandy Hook massacre, which happened shortly after he'd wrapped up filming his scenes. Quote, "I did Kick-Ass 2 a month before Sandy Hook, and now in all good conscience I cannot support that level of violence. I am not ashamed of it, but recent events have caused a change in my heart." End quote. While that's a respectable stand to take, the bosses at Universal Pictures probably wished Carrey had figured that out before taking the role. Passengers is a science fiction adventure starring Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. Despite the star power of its cast, it didn't do very well at the box office, partly due to backlash against a crucial plot point that involves a startling disregard for the consent and personal autonomy of one of the characters, which wasn't helped by Jennifer Lawrence admitting that she spent the sex scenes too drunk to remember doing them. She told CNN she had jitters about the shoot because it was going to be her first time filming a sex scene and also felt guilty about doing so with Pratt, who's married. Quote, "I got really drunk, but that led to more anxiety because I was like, what have I done? I don't know. And it was gonna be my first time kissing a married man, and the guilt is the worst feeling in your stomach." End quote. In Basic Instinct, Sharon Stone plays writer/murderer Catherine Trammell, who uses her wits and sex appeal to easily manipulate the men around her, especially in the iconic scene where, by simply uncrossing her legs and flashing the cash during a police interrogation, she completely reverses the balance of power.
It's nice.
Which is sort of ironic, because according to Stone, the scene itself turns out to be born of manipulation and a violation of consent. Stone claims she was asked by director Paul Verhoeven to remove her underwear because the flashes of white were messing up the shot. She was assured there would be no nudity visible on camera and didn't discover she had been tricked until she saw the finished film, in a room full of other people. She responded by slapping Verhoeven, who has publicly denied Stone's claims, saying, "It's a lie." In The Phantom Menace, Terrence Stamp plays Chancellor Valorum, who's ushered out in favor of the secret Sith Lord Palpatine thanks to a vote of no confidence from Queen Amidala, played by Natalie Portman. It's about as exciting to watch as an actual Senate hearing, but it's important to the overall plot, or what passes for one. Stamp signed on to the movie for the sole purpose of getting to act with Natalie Portman. However, when he actually arrived on set, Portman was nowhere in sight, and Stamp was directed to aim his dialogue towards a piece of paper on the wall instead. He told IndieWire it was just pretty boring, which, not coincidentally, also sums up the entire movie.